October 14th, 1943, 25,000 feet above the industrial heartland of Germany. The temperature outside the aluminum skin of the aircraft is 60 degrees below zero. It is cold enough to freeze sweat instantly. Inside the unpressurized fuselage of the B-17 Flying Fortress, 10 men are breathing pure oxygen through rubber masks. They are encased in thick sheepskin flight suits, heavy boots, and heated gloves. They are scanning the gray horizon, waiting. For the last 3 hours, the drone of the 4 Wright Cyclone engines has been the only sound, a steady, deafening roar that vibrates through their bones. But that rhythm is about to break. Suddenly, a dull thud shakes the airframe. Black smoke erupts from the number 3 engine on the starboard wing. The manifold pressure gauge drops to 0. The pilot fights the yoke, kicking the rudder to compensate for the drag, but the heavy bomber shudders. It feels sluggish. It feels heavy. The pilot pushes the throttles of the remaining 3 engines to the firewall, demanding maximum power. But it's not enough. The physics of flight are unforgiving. With the loss of power and the increased drag of the dead propeller, the bomber begins to slow down. Ahead of them, the rest of the squadron, 18 other B-17s flying in tight formation, continues at cruising speed. They do not slow down. They cannot slow down. The distance opens up. First 100 yards, then 500, then a mile. Up here, speed is life, and right now this crew is watching their lifeline fade into the distance. They have become what every airman fears most. They are a straggler. And in the eyes of the Luftwaffe pilots watching from the clouds above, they are already dead. To understand why dropping back was a death sentence, you have to understand the genius and the brutality of American bomber doctrine. The Americans didn't fly in random groups. They flew in a mathematically perfect formation known as the combat box. Devised by commanders like Curtis LeMay, this formation was designed to turn a squadron of bombers into a floating fortress. A single B-17 had up to 13 50-caliber machine guns, but a combat box of 18 planes brought over 200 machine guns to bear. It was a geometry of death. The planes were stacked in high, lead, and low elements. This created interlocking fields of fire. No matter which angle a German fighter attacked from, they would have to fly through a wall of lead coming from 3 or 4 different bombers simultaneously. It was a defensive shell that kept the wolves at bay. As long as you stayed in the box, you were part of an invincible machine. But the box had one fatal weakness. It moved at the speed of the group. If your engine failed, or if flak shredded your rudder, or if you took a fuel leak, the formation could not wait for you. The mission came first. The safety of the group came first. If you couldn't keep up, you were cut loose.
The silence of being a straggler is almost worse than the noise of battle. When the formation disappears, you lose more than just your friends. You lose your eyes. In the formation, dozens of gunners are scanning the sky, calling out bandits on the radio. Alone, there are only 10 pairs of eyes looking for threats in 360 degrees of empty, hostile sky. Inside the plane, the mood shifts from focus to dread. The navigator frantically checks his charts, calculating a new heading. They are no longer following the safe path of the Armada. They have to navigate home alone, over occupied Europe. The waist gunners stand by the open windows, the freezing wind blasting their faces, their eyes watering as they scan the abyss. They know the German ground radar has already picked them up. They know the vectors are being sent to fighter bases in France and Belgium. Consider the ball turret gunner. He is curled into a fetal position inside a glass and metal sphere hanging from the belly of the plane. He is spinning, searching the ground below. He is the most isolated man in the crew. If the plane takes a hit and the electrical systems fail, the turret jams. He is trapped. If the landing gear collapses on landing, the ball turret is crushed against the tarmac. But right now, his biggest fear isn't the landing, it's the tail-end Charlie attack. And then, it happens. Bandits, 6 o'clock high. They arrive in pairs. The Luftwaffe pilots were experts at spotting stragglers. They called it plucking the feathers. They knew a lone B-17 had blind spots. Without the formation to cover them, the German fighters, Messerschmitt 109s and Focke-Wulf's 190s, could queue up and take their time. They don't spray bullets wildly. They are precise. They line up for the head-on pass. The German fighters swing around to the front. They close at a combined speed of over 600 miles per hour. The B-17 pilot sees the wings of the German planes light up as they fire their 20mm cannons. He has a split second to react, but a B-17 is a heavy beast. It doesn't dodge. He just holds the course and prays the bombardier and top turret gunner can disrupt their aim. The sound of the impact is terrifying. It's not like the movies. It sounds like someone is throwing handfuls of gravel against a tin roof, followed by the sledgehammer impacts of the cannon shells. Glass shatters. The instrument panel sparks. The sheer durability of the flying fortress is the only reason the crew was still alive. Large sections of the tail might be blown away. The radio operator might be wounded. The oxygen system might be leaking, threatening the crew with hypoxia, a silent death that puts you to sleep before you crash. With the upper turret jammed and the tail gunner out of ammo, the pilot makes a desperate call. "We're going down! Get to the deck!" He pushes the nose forward. The heavy bomber groans as it dives. This is a gamble. If they stay high, the fighters will pick them apart piece by piece. Their only hope is to fly so low that the German fighters can't dive on them without hitting the ground. The altimeter unwinds. 20,000 feet, 10,000, 5,000. The air gets thicker. The temperature rises. The frost on the windows melts. They pull out of the dive just above the treetops. They are now flying a 4-engine strategic bomber like a fighter plane. They are skimming over French farmhouses so low they can see the laundry hanging on the lines. The German fighters hesitate. At this altitude, their advantage is gone. The flak towers can't track them because they're moving too fast across the horizon. For the next hour, it is a white-knuckle flight. The pilot fights the controls with pure muscle, his arms burning with lactic acid, keeping the damaged wings level. The crew is silent, listening to the strained engines, waiting for the coast. Finally, the gray water of the English Channel appears. But the danger isn't over. They are wounded. They have no hydraulics. The brakes might not work. The landing gear might be stuck. As the coast of England comes into view, they fire a red flare, the signal for wounded on board. The ambulances on the airfield start their engines. The pilot lines up with the runway. He has to bring this 30-ton metal wreck down gently. He cuts the power. The wheels touch. The tires screech. He fights to keep it straight. The plane skids, slows, and finally stops. Silence returns. The crew falls out of the hatches onto the wet grass. They kiss the ground. They light cigarettes with shaking hands. Ground crews rush over, staring in disbelief at the damage. They count the holes, sometimes 200, sometimes 500. They survived the impossible. They fought the Luftwaffe alone and won. But as they look up at the sky, they know the truth. Tomorrow, the sirens will sound again. They will climb back into a new plane. They will form up the box, and they will pray to God that this time they don't get left behind.